Hey, what's up, guys? This is Spartacus, and I am recording this video for as a preview, or these few videos as a preview for the Goblins versus Gnomes, which is coming out soon. Hopefully, we don't know, sometime in December. Um, and I'm just going to give you my opinions on the cards. So, um, for my credentials, if or whatever, I've been playing Hearthstone since Season 1. And I just recently hit Legend. So I like to think I know how to play. Maybe I don't. Maybe I just gotten extremely lucky. But I do think I can play, and I am going to evaluate these cards and give you my opinions on them, and then feel free to argue in the comment section about how wrong I am, and just talk more about these cards. I'm really excited for this to come out, and I'm really excited for um, how the meta is going to change and all these cards. And it's an exciting time in Hearthstone because things have gotten a little stale, and this will really shift things up a lot. So I'm just going to kick it off right away, actually. So in order to start off evaluating these cards, we need to talk about the spare part cards. So these are spare parts. They all cost 1 mana, and they aren't cards on their own. They come from other cards. For example, Toshli, Battlecry, Death Rattle, and a spare part card to your hand. So you would get one of these randomly to your hand. And I'm going to briefly evaluate them just to kick it off, because you're going to see cards that have spare parts as part of their interaction. So these cards are not very good. Their uses are, there are a couple uses in terms of just them on their own. They're a spell, so you can combo them with other cards like Violet Teacher and Gadgetzan Auctioneer to help you out. They are 1 mana, so you can kind of slide them into slots when maybe you just need to fill up your mana curve. They are cards that add to your hand, so maybe that helps with some sort of hand deck. Helps get Mountain Giants and Twilight Drakes bigger. So there's that in terms of what they can do, and then we'll go over them. Armor Plating, give minion 1 health. Very basic, and I mean, kind of helps with trading. Same with Whirring Blades, give a minion 1 attack. These help with making more trades more efficient. Freeze a minion, that is kind of a tempo play, help you out a little bit. You know, has its uses. Give a friendly minion stealth until next turn. Protect a minion that you want to stay alive. That can have its uses too. In a lot of ways, I guess. You know, throw this on legendary you want to stay alive or anything. I mean, it can definitely be useful. Give a minion taunt, probably the worst one. Rusty Horn. I mean, it can help protect another adjacent minion, or stop some incoming damage. But even the worst one has its uses, in a way. I'm going to talk about the two I think are the best. First, Time Rewinder. Return a friendly minion to your hand. Basically, you can return a friendly minion to your hand, then replay it if you have the mana. That allows you to heal it up, which is really nice. And then you can play it. More importantly, though, things like Battle Cries, you can get to reuse. There's some pretty powerful Battle Cries in the game. You can do some pretty sweet combos with this card. It's like the Brewmasters, except I guess it's a little more flexible because it's just the 1 mana. And I like that. I think that it's going to be really interesting. And then the reversing switch here, I think it's the most powerful. Swap a minion's attack and health. You can use it to BGH something. You can use it to steal something. If you're a priest, sometimes you can. It's the same as the Crazed Alchemist effect, Battlecry, right? So you can use it to trade up. There are many ways you can use it. You can use it to finish someone off, you know, unexpectedly. It's pretty cool. And even all these cards add an element surprise that your opponent has to try and play around, and you have to figure out the best way to use them. It requires more skill in the game. I think it's like really fun. Means no game's going to be the same. It's going to be fun to watch professionals use these cards in really cool ways. Now I'm thinking about it, I actually think the Finicky Cloak Field could be really good. You can give stealth to things that you just wouldn't necessarily think about giving stealth to. I mean, think about just giving stealth to a rag, for example. You turn 9, play the rag, and then you cloak it, and then they can't kill it next turn, and that's really, really valuable, because usually big minions like that immediately die, or even like a Ysera or something. More I'm thinking about it, the cloak field might actually be pretty good. So there you are for the spare part, my evaluation on them. They're not quite worth a card. It's not really like draw a card because they're not quite as good, but they also don't fish anything out of your deck, so you don't thin your deck out, which I think is pretty nice. So we're gonna do about half of these neutral cards right now. Starting from the top here with the Annoyatron. 2 mana, 1/2, Taunt and Divine Shield. I don't think it's a very good card at all. You might look at this card and think, oh, it's anti-aggro, and yeah, I guess it's anti-Hunter, because Hunter have a lot of 1 health minions, but it's not going to stop Zoo, because it's just not going to kill anything, and you need board control, and this is just going to stall a little bit, and that's not really what you need. You need to kind of take out all the minions. You don't just want to stall. So it could help against some pressure, but not all that much. I think where it's actually going to get most of its use is in decks like Zoo. Kind of the way the Voidwalker works right now. You can use it to protect your other minions. I mean, thing is, it is 2 mana, it's inefficient, but it's a mech, and we're going to find going through these cards that mech is pretty valuable. And it definitely has its uses. So, with all the synergy between the mechs. I'm also going to mention the arena value of the cards. In arena, I think this card's pretty bad. Maybe you have a lot of mech value, maybe you don't. I'm not sure. But I think it's a pretty poor card for arena. And unless you have a lot of mechs, probably not worth it to take, because it's going to have I mean, it might be able to kill another 2 health minion, 2 mana, 2 health minion, but the fact that you have to say might isn't good, and you can just ping away, or a lot of classes can just hit away the Divine Shield, so yeah, I don't think it's actually a very good card. The unique heal bot, or antique, it's unique. The antique heal bot right here is 5 mana, 3 health, 3 attack minion. Pretty poor on the surface with those stats. Battlecry, restore 8 health to your hero. So it's like a healing touch for Druid, except you get a 2 mana, 3/3. So that's pretty sweet. Not quite that though. You can't really think about it quite like that, because healing touch can be used on anything. And the point is though, usually if you're storing 8 health, you're gonna do it to yourself. Just to kick it off, this is a poor card in Arena, because Arena health is more of a resource you use. You don't really care as much about your health in Arena, it's more about the board, so the 5 mana for 3/3 is really poor in Arena. And that's why I think this is actually a very bad Arena card. In Constructed, we'll see. Sometimes you need a lot of heal, and when there's a lot of freeze mages around, you need to recover from Alexstrasza. But I don't know. I think that overall, where I'm thinking this might get a lot of use is a mech shaman. Shamans have always needed a big heal. And Earthen Ring's Farseer just wouldn't cut it. This is 8 health to a shaman is pretty valuable, I think. I think we could see this played in shaman. That's my prediction, and it might be a little too expensive. I'm not sure, but if it's going to go anywhere, that's probably where it's going to fit in. The Burly Rockdraw Trog. Try saying that 5 times fast. Whenever your opponent casts a spell, gain +2 attack. It's a 4 mana, 3/5. Good vanilla stats, and it's got a cool little effect. Don't think it'll be played much in Constructed, because it's kind of like a spell taunt in a way, like it, or it's like a. When I say it like this, it's gonna sound powerful, but it's kind of like a Sylvanas for spells. It's like when you put Sylvanas down, your opponent has to remove it before they can replay minions. Well, in this way, your opponent has to remove it, or else they can't play a bunch of spells. So it's kind of like anti, what's it called? Miracle Rogue? The problem is that it's pretty easy to just remove with the spells, so it doesn't really matter if it gets the attack. I mean, it is 5 health, but still, you can remove it. I just don't see it fitting in to Constructed decks, because it depends too much on what your opponent does, and I don't think that's a good way to play. I think I mean, it's it's just it's too dependent on your opponent, and it's not enough dependent on what you're doing. It's got decent stats. I just don't see it really fitting in anywhere. But I could be completely wrong, and this could be the best card in the whole set. Um, in Arena, it's definitely a solid card. It's just the vanilla 4 for 3/5, and it's got that nice little bonus there. Um, so it can definitely grow, and who knows, it can really wreak some havoc. I think it's just a solid pick in Arena. Okay, Clockwork Gnome. 1 drop, 2/1 mech. Death Rattle, put a spare part in your hand. So it's kind of like a Death Rattle, draw half a card, which is cool. Leper Gnome is 2 mana, 2/1 Death Rattle, draw a card. So I think this Clockwork Gnome's actually not too bad. It's a mech too, so it'll synergize. And it'll get you off and running with that spare part to fill in your mana curve when you're doing your mech, throwing down each card. I like it. In Arena, it's got that 1 health problem, but I still think it's alright in Arena. I think it's better than Leper Gnome in Arena because you're going more for board control, not face. However, in a face deck, Leper Gnome's still better. That's the card I'm going to compare it to as well. But a nice little mech card. You know, it's got its uses. Cogmaster, I don't think this card's very good. 1 mana, 1 attack, 2 health. Has +2 attack while you have a mech. So it requires you also having a mech out. I guess if you put turn 1, you have the coin, this and this. That's kind of a nice little combo, the Clockwork Gnome and the Cogmaster. But, you know, it can't really grow to outstanding rates, the Cogmaster. Not like the Undertaker, for example. So it kind of is just, it has the potential to get a small amount extra value on the mana, but it's only potential. It's not necessarily going to get that, so I don't think it's very useful because its potential is very low anyway. And in Arena, it's even worse because you can't always count on having mechs. Unless you do, then I guess you could draft it. Explosive Sheep. Explosive Sheep is an unreal card. It is so good for, first of all, Mage. It's 1 card, 4 mana, board clear. You throw it down, or 2 damage, not board clear. Consecration. Throw it down, ping it, boom. The whole board gets 2 damage dealt. And that's where people are really thinking this thing's going to go, and it will. It'll go on Mage. I'm really intrigued by it in Druid because if you combine it with Poison Seeds, it's a board clear. It's like a quality Consecration. Now, obviously, Equality is a better card because it can also be used with your little dudes, and it can be used with Consecration. But I think Explosive Sheep is pretty good with the Poison Seeds. I think it can work. I definitely do think it can work. So we'll see if it does. That is a 2-card combination. Sometimes you don't get that, but Druid just doesn't have a way to clear boards right now. When they fall behind, they have such a tough time. Swipe, sometimes with spell power, can do things. Can do some work. Even if you don't have the Poison Seeds, this is still 2 damage to the full board, which is nice for a Druid. Considering the fact that sometimes Force of Nature has to clean up, and you really want to use that to finish, and then you're even more behind because you can't really establish anything on the board when you use Force. So, Explosive Sheep, you can use a 6 mana with the Poison Seeds, and then you can drop a Yeti, you know, and then you can kind of get the game back a little bit. So I'm really interested to see if that does work. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't, but it could. And in Arena, is a good card. It'll be used for board clears, and it'll be especially good in Mage. Mage might not have to run Flame Strike anymore, either. Flame Strike's sometimes overkill, or not Blizzard or something. But yeah, Explosive Street, fun card, good card. Mech Warper. I originally thought this card was so OP. 2 mana, 2/3. Your mechs cost 1 less. I was like, oh no, you're just gonna keep dropping mechs. It's like a pint-sized summoner, but it has 1 extra health. And then when I said that to myself, it's like a pint-sized summoner, but it's only for 1 specific type of card. Well, it's kind of got taunt on it. You got to kill it immediately, kind of like Undertaker. So it is a good card. It'll be really annoying early on to deal with as the opponent when it's on the other side of the board. But it's not going to be very good in the late game, and it's the same way that Undertaker is, and it's the reason why Undertaker isn't overpowered, and the reason why Zombie Chow isn't overpowered, because in the late game, these cards have problems, and Mech Warper is going to be the same thing. It's just going to be a vanilla card, and while vanilla is not necessarily bad in the late game, usually you want something bigger. And it's not even going to be as good as Zombie Chow in the late game, for example, because you can't throw down a Zombie Chow and throw down a couple Death Rattles with it, or you can't just throw this down and then it's not going to matter that you're shaving off mana, because in the late game you have so much mana anyway. In Arena, it's a good card. It's going to be in all mech decks and constructed, but in Arena, it's a good card. Solid, and then if you have mechs, you can kind of stack on top of them. So yeah, and then constructed, it'll be in all mech decks, I'm sure, though. It is a good card. I'm just saying I don't think it's overpowered. Micro Machine. At 2 mana, 1/2. Ugh. At the start of your turn, gain +1 attack. Okay. So, if this card survives your opponent's turn when you play it, it comes back to you as a 3/2. If it survives again, it comes back to you as a 5/2, or however much health it has. This card is another one that's like, kill it now. Honestly, it's got like implied taunt on it. You gotta get rid of it before this thing spirals out of control, because it's gonna grow really quick. And it's a mech. It'll be in all those mech decks because it is a good card. Really solid a 2-drop. It does have 2 health, so you can take it out fairly easily, but you gotta do it quick, or otherwise it's gonna really wreak some havoc. And it might be able to trade up really high. I mean, if you leave it for a couple turns, it's gonna kill your Yeti. So, definitely gonna be in the mech decks. I think it's a good card, and it's also a solid card in Arena. You know, because it's a 2/2 on their turn, so that's not all that great if they have it. But you wouldn't throw it down against a 2/3, basically. That's what you can't do. But it has high upside, and I think it is better than a generic 3/2 Bloodfen Raptor. Especially because it's got the mech thing as well. Piloted Shredder. It's one of these piloted cards, which I'm going to talk about more later. There's 3 of them. This is the lowest costing one. 4 mana, 4/3. Okay, not that great, but summon a random 2-cost minion on death. It's also a mech. This card's going to go in mech decks, probably, as a lot of these mech cards will. But this one's one of the better ones. And summon a random 2-cost minion. Let's just say vanilla, that's like 2/2. A lot of them have like cool effects. I guess you don't want a Doomsayer, but sometimes you get one. Sometimes, you know, it will hurt a little, but I think it's fine, because if we give the average 2-cost minion 2/2, which is a little low, actually. I think it's like 2.5 or 2.5. Then this is technically a 4 mana 6/5. So that's insane. Some argue it's worse than Yeti, because this is just gonna not be able to trade as well. It's gonna die quicker. But then you get the other. I don't know. I think it might be better than Yeti. It can be silenced though. We'll have to wait and see. Is it gonna be the best 4-drop? But the fact that it's in the debate, like, will this replace Yeti and Druid? The fact that it's in the debate says a lot about the card. It's a good card. It'll be in mech decks. It might go in non-mech decks, and that's a real big thing. And then in Arena, this card's a winner. Take it when you get it. Okay, Spider Tank. The 3 mana, 3/4 mech. That's it. Solid card. We've been waiting for the 3 mana, 3/4. And it's also a mech, so you get that. Great card in Arena. It will probably go in mech decks. The question people are asking themselves is, what's better, Harvest Golem or this? Because Harvest Golem's also a mech now. And I guess it depends on the situation. Harvest Golem obviously doesn't trade as well when it hits the board, but it does have that other effect, so it's kind of got... It's very sticky. So it's a little slower than Spider Tank. Spider Tank's a little bit faster, and I think that's where you'll see the separation, and you'll see people choose one card over another for that reason. The Tinkertown Technician is a fantastic card, guys. 3 mana, 3/3, passes the vanilla test. And the Battle Cry, if you control a mech, gain 1/1 and put a spare part in your hand. So that's like, if you control a mech, 3 mana 4/4 and draw half a card. That's insane. That is awesome. And if you don't control a mech, it's still not terrible. And you will put this in a mech deck, so most of the time you'll have a mech down, or you'll throw one down on turn 5, like a 2-mana mech, and you'll throw this down. And that's pretty good. It's going to be in mech decks. It's another way to get spare parts in your hand. So once people figure out how they want to use spare parts, it'll be in a lot of those decks as well. As for Arena, still a great card. 3 mana 3/3 is fine, and when you do get to use the Battle Cry, it is superb. So for that reason, it'll be a popular pick, especially if you already have mechs in your deck. And finally, for this video, is the Bomb Lobber here. The Bomb Lobber is a 5 mana 3/3. Ugh. Wait a second. Battle Cry, deal 4 damage to a random enemy minion. Pretty good. That is like a 3 mana 3/3 and a 2 mana deal 4 damage to a random enemy minion, which happens to be the effective Flame Cannon, which is a new mage card for Goblins versus Gnomes. This is the Gadget Sand Killer. So it's just a stealth Gadget Sand, just bomb lob them. So it's kind of like a techie card. It might go in some constructed decks if there's just too much Miracle, which is nice. It's nice to always have that kind of thing. I love tech cards. I love cards that are taken in and out of decks based on the meta, things like BGH and Hearthstone and Black Knight and stuff like that. And, cards that really depend on that I find really interesting. And this is kind of one of them, and it's also not terrible if they don't have, a stealth Gadget Sand. You can still time it where it's going to be to your best advantage, and you can play it like that. I don't know how often it'll get run or where it'll get run. It'll get run in some control decks. Not that often, but it will. And it's a solid arena card too. Obviously the stats you'd like a little bit more, but the deal 4 damage is really nice. So I think it's just a solid card and a solid arena pick. Okay, so it's gonna be the end of part 1. Part 2 is coming up next with the Gnomish Experimenter. Ooh yeah, and the rest of the neutral cards. So thanks for watching, and watch part 2. Cool.